This is the story of Solomon, the wisest, richest, and most powerful king in biblical history. He made Israel great, but he had one weakness: his desire for women clouded his judgment. Despite having all the makings of the greatest king of Israel, Solomon turned out to be the worst. Have you ever heard of a king who had the gift of wisdom, but whose harem of 1,000 women led to his downfall? God gave Solomon the gift of wisdom, and he established trade links and a great kingdom with Israel that included 700 brides and 300 concubines, all of whom came from different parts of the known world. However, Solomon's harem was a verdant garden with 700 wives and 300 concubines. Each woman brought a piece of her homeland, transforming the palace into a living tapestry of mixed cultures. However, these unions were a double-edged sword, as they also brought the gods and practices of their countries challenging the pure faith of Israel. Thus, Solomon's magnificent court became a maze of political intrigue and shaky alliances. Princesses from Egypt with mysterious eyes, ladies from Moab, women from Ammon, women from Edom, and women from Sidon, all with their own stories and dreams entangled in Solomon's magnificent court. The beginning of Solomon's story was clouded by a dark secret: King David's adulterous relationship with Bathsheba, who was then married to Uriah the Hittite, a valiant soldier in David's army. Desperate to cover up his transgression, the king sent Uah into battle, telling the other soldiers to leave him unprotected as was customary. Uriah met his death in battle, but God did not ignore the king's transgressions. The death of David and Bathsheba's first son was viewed as divine judgment and a punishment for the adultery, but God showed mercy amid sorrow and repentance, forgiving King David, and Solomon was born as a peace offering as a result of that reconciliation. Heaven and earth in between. While King David attended to the business of the kingdom, the young prince was raised by the wise and mysterious prophet Nathan. Nathan served as Solomon's tutor and counselor, imparting wisdom and receiving revelations from God that shaped Solomon's mind and soul. But then Nathan started to craft a daring scheme. The prophet realized that Solomon was not King David's firstborn and that there were older brothers who might inherit the throne. Nathan saw an extraordinary destiny in Solomon through his eyes and heard the promise of greatness burning in the young prince's heart. And Nathan also had a dark secret. He knew the whole truth about the adultery between King David and Bathsheba, Solomon's mother. With cunning and determination, Nathan decided to use this knowledge to his advantage in private meetings with King David. Nathan started to sow the idea that Solomon was God's chosen heir through well-chosen words and prophetic visions. The monarch was persuaded by the prophet that choosing Solomon was God's will, so gradually David started to see the promise of a glorious future in his younger son. When David fell ill and neared death, he mustered the strength to reiterate his choice and name Solomon as his rightful successor. While the young King Solomon was sleeping in his bed one quiet night, he fell into a profound and illuminating dream in which God appeared before him and spoke to him in a tone full of grace. Solomon, humbled by the weight of responsibility bearing down on him, answered, "You have shown great kindness to your servant my father David, because he was faithful to you and righteous and upright in heart. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong, for who is able to govern this great people of yours?" Solomon's request pleased the Lord, who saw his sincerity and desired to rule with wisdom. The Lord responded, "Since you have asked for this, and not for long life or wealth for yourself or the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be." Thus, Solomon awoke from his dream carrying the most priceless gift a ruler could desire: the wisdom and discernment granted by God himself. This divine encounter marked a turning point in Solomon's life and allowed him to lead his people with justice and passion. Solomon's wisdom became famous, drawing people from all over the world who were eager to hear him speak and absorb his knowledge in its written form. All of the world's kings sought Solomon out to hear the wisdom that God had placed in his heart. The Lord, seeing Solomon's wayward heart, was filled with wrath and sadness. This was the man who, blessed with unmatched wealth and wisdom, had turned his back on his commandments and given himself over to the worship of false gods. Solomon, who had built the magnificent temple in Jerusalem to honor the God of Israel, now found himself erecting altars to Astarte, Milcom, and Molech, abominable gods of neighboring nations. Idolatry had taken root in his heart, clouding his judgment and separating him from the divine wisdom that had once distinguished him. Since this is your attitude, and you have not maintained my covenant and my decrees which I instructed you to do, I will most certainly rip the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates. God approached Solomon in his righteous fury and warned him of the repercussions of his behavior. Solomon was warned by God, whose voice was as loud as thunder, that the kingdom he had so carefully and wisely constructed would be divided and given to others after his death. In the country that had once been united under his reign, disobedience and idolatry had sowed the seeds of discord and disintegration. Since the wealthy and wise King Solomon gave in to temptation and deviated from the straight road, his example would serve as a lesson to future generations. If you appreciated the message presented here, kindly support us. Please like and consider subscribing to our channel if you're interested in learning more about the amazing stories found in the Bible.